we've done many studies around the world. What we have learned for both children and for adults is that for every time you drink an extra SSB, you have extra weight gain. Almost 100% of the caloric value of the SSB. So if you drink an extra SSB a day, your likelihood of becoming overweight goes up 20-25% depending on the age group, but it leads to weight gain. If you're an adult and you drink SSBs, the risks of diabetes and the risks of hypertension really increase greatly. So for adults and for heavy adolescents, the drinking an extra SSB a day will really increase their likelihood of getting diabetes. For getting rid of obesity or preventing obesity really is the way we should think about it. Preventing extra weight gain, the most effective policy we understand is taxing sugary beverages. After that, a combination type of policy like in Chile, where they do a front of the package profiling of a warning label, and then they also use that in the schools so that the schools can't have the same foods with the warning label. That has really had a huge impact in Chile on consumption of sugary beverages, consumption of all the ultra-processed food. So both taxation and front of the package warning labels have proven to be our most effective policies today for preventing, cutting down our food consumption of unhealthy foods and reducing our risks of weight gain, diabetes, hypertension, other diseases. We find that people are very sensitive to prices. If you increase a tax so that it increases the cost by 15 or 20%, it reduces SSB consumption over a couple years by that amount, almost exactly. Low-income people reduce their consumption more than high-income people, but they also are the most likely to have undiagnosed diabetes and hypertension, so the best health benefits go to the low-income population when we tax SSBs. In Mexico, we found in the first year overall, as sugary beverage consumption went down by 6%, and in the second year, an extra 4%. So over 2 years, consumption of this 10% tax declined by 10%. In Mexico, we found that for low-income Mexicans, by the end of the first year, the consumption went down by 17%, whereas for high-income Mexicans, it went down very little. However, more than 3/4 of the undiagnosed diabetes in Mexico is among the low-income Mexicans. So the effect in preventing diabetes was enormous, and we found that we prevented tens of thousands of diabetes cases. What we recently looked at was the level of consumption of sugary beverages, and we found in Mexico that the tax impacted much more high consumers. So people that consume 4 or 5 or 6 bottles or glasses a day of sugary beverages reduced their intake the most. Those who consume very little reduced their intake almost not at all. So that the effect was that the tax impacted those with the biggest risks of diabetes from drinking too much excessive SSBs. The high consumers have cut their consumption 50 to 60 milliliters, and that's the ones that really count. The 20 to 30% of the population that are diabetics cut it significantly. One of the biggest issues is the fact that what we call a tax is it affects the poor more than it affects the rich when we tax a beverage or any other food. The important issue to understand is that low-income Mexicans are very unlikely to have their diabetes diagnosed and treated properly. almost every person who's low income in Mexico and diabetes has untreated or poorly treated diabetes. So they lose legs, they lose eyes, they die from the diabetes. We have this happen in the tens of thousands per year. So the tax in Mexico is very progressive when it affects the poor, because they are the ones consuming the highest amounts of SSB and the ones with the most untreated diabetes and also untreated hypertension and other heart difficulties. The sugary beverage industry says we care about your health. However, when it comes to changing and selling only water instead of selling sugary beverages, they refuse to do that. They interfere constantly. If we didn't have their interference, the public could decide what was good for public health, and that was how policies would be made. However, the sugary beverage industry truly cares more about profits than about people's health. And they are constantly interfering, buying academics, buying off associations, giving money to politicians, all of which is based on making a profit and hurting people's health. That you provide to the large major global sugary beverage companies, Coca-Cola and Pepsi in particular, reduces the cost to them, and it reduces the price, and it acts as an incentive for people to consume more sugary beverages.